Hey, this is Joe from Presonus, and in this video, we're going to cover some common mistakes people make in their recording software. Okay, Gregor hates when I do this, but I've got three. He hates the way I hold up that for three. Three common mistakes that I want to go over today and why they're mistakes and a better alternative to them. If you like what we talk about in this video, you want to see this turn into a series, I will happily do it. Just leave comments, let me know if this is the kind of thing that's helpful for you. Now, if you make any or all of these mistakes, don't feel bad. I'm not here to shame you. I've made them all as well. I'm just trying to save you some time and frustration and point out, hey, this that you're doing and this that you're doing is actually kind of shooting you in the foot, and here's why, okay? Mistake number one is misuse of the duplicate track function. Let's say you got an acoustic guitar. And you think, ooh, that sounds good. For some reason, some people think, ooh, I know how to make that sound better. I'm gonna duplicate it, and then I'm gonna take this duplicate and I'm gonna pan it to the left. Now listen. Ooh, that sounds better. Well, if that sounds good, I'm gonna duplicate it again. We're like creating a stereo thing. I'm gonna duplicate it again, and I'm gonna pan that one to the right, and it'll sound even better, right? Do you know what we've done here? We've created a really complicated way of doing a very simple thing, which is taking a track and panning it to the left, or panning it to the right, or turning it up. What a lot of people don't realize is when you take a track, let's just forget the panning for a second. Let's say we just take the track and we duplicate it. Here's the first track by itself. Here it is duplicated, so we're hearing it twice. It is completely human nature to hear that second one and say, oh, well, that sure sounds better. Do you know why it sounds better? Because it's louder. That's it. It is literally just louder. We accomplish the same thing by listening to the first one and just turning it up like 6 dB. That is the exact same sound we got by duplicating. There's no benefit there. And then some folks will want to take the duplicated signal and like EQ it. That doesn't make a lot of sense because then the original signal without the EQ is still there. And then the panning trick here, if I take one of them and pan them to the left, one's up the middle, one's to the left, guess what? We've done the thing where we've increased the volume, and we've also essentially just panned this halfway to the left. Now guess what? Here's just the one track by itself. Sounds exactly the same. You can even see on the meter over here, it is just panned like 45 or 50% of the way to the left. Exact same thing. The only time where I will duplicate a track and do something to it is if I want to take the guitar, like a bass guitar, duplicate it and put distortion on the second track and then blend between the two. That's a situation where you want to duplicate. But really, a lot of these things I'm seeing from folks is they're duplicating to create panning or to create stereo. That is not the way to create stereo. Let me show you another example from this session. Okay, here's a background vocal. Now, if I want to turn that into like a stereo sound, aside from the reverb that's there, what a lot of people will do is the same thing I've shown you. They'll duplicate the track, they'll pan the first one to the left, the second one to the right, and they'll hope for stereo. It's not. That is still the definition of mono. It is one piece of audio. You can duplicate it 1,000 times. All you're going to get is more volume. You're not going to get any sort of stereo spread. The only way to get that stereo spread is to do something like this, to come in and record that part twice. So I recorded it once, I literally sang it, then I created a new track and I sang it again, and now we have two tracks panned left and right, two different performances. Now we've got our stereo. If you want that wide stereo sound on your guitars or your vocals or anything else, you've got to record it twice if you want it to sound like that. Mistake number two is not exporting your song right. Here's what I mean. Here's a song I've exported. It's called My Mix. Let's just drag it into a session and show you what we have here in the waveform. If we zoom in to the beginning of this song, if we were to open this on our phone or on our browser to take a listen, we would hit play and this would happen. It literally happens all the time. I see it all the time. And then the end of the song, same thing. Check it out. Final chord of the song. And then there is a good 2 minutes of silence at the end. It's one of those things that makes you, if you're working with somebody else and you're trying to show them what you can do, this makes you look unprofessional because you gave them a song with like 5 or 10 seconds of silence at the beginning. So if they make it all the way for the music to begin, they're already a little confused and maybe frustrated, or they listen to the first few seconds and there's nothing, and they write you back and say, hey, something's wrong with this file, there's no audio. And it puts everybody on the defensive and on like you're on the wrong foot. The solution is very, very simple. Let me delete this track. The solution is very simple. Inside your system, whatever system you use, there should be a way to tell it what the range is that you want to export. In Studio One, it's really easy, but you may not have this particular feature showing. Come up here to the top left side of the arranger, click on Global Track Visibility, and select Marker. Every song, if we zoom out, has by default a start marker and an end marker. And they're usually set to something like 4 or 5 minutes. But the start marker is usually right at the very beginning. Chances are your song doesn't start at the beginning. For example, mine, I gave myself a 4-bar intro. Mine starts right here at bar 5. So I might put the start marker right there, right before. Okay, that's a normal starting point. And then the end marker, well, that needs to just go down here closer to the end of the song. Now, when I go to export, what I will choose in my export range is simply between song start and end marker, and it will only export that range and leave off that terrible 10 seconds of silence we had before. Mistake number 3 that people make, and this one is, it's one of those you just can't really know it's a mistake unless somebody points it out to you, exporting your MP3 files at too low of a resolution. So I've got the export window pulled up here. Now, if you want to export as WAV files, that's great. That's kind of a full resolution file, but it's a big file. The one I just played for you is about 80 megabytes. Maybe you want to attach this to an email, send it in a text message, or make it easy for people to download. You probably want an MP3. MP3s can sound great, but not if you do this. If you go to MP3 and you select 64, it's going to sound like garbage. 128, not very great. That rhymed. But what I do every single time is I use the 320. You'll hear debates about sample rate in the studio, 44.1, 48K, up to 96K and 192. That debate is completely different. The differences between 44.1 and 192, there may be differences there, but they're going to be subtle. They're going to be not super obvious differences. The difference here is super obvious. You know what? I have to just show you. I'm going to export this mix at 64 and hit play just so you can hear it really quickly. You hear that gerbily sort of sound on the S's and T's? That's where you hear it in the high frequencies. There's this sort of thing that happens. That's not, I didn't put a warbly effect on my vocal. Here's how it actually sounds in the mix. It's very clear, it's very understandable, but in this MP3 version, it's got this muffled sort of sound. And if you can't hear that, that's completely fine. This is probably a bad example for that, but something with heavy high frequencies with drums and cymbals, you hear it even more. The cymbals, instead of going, they go, and they kind of crumble. That's just what happens when you're taking a nice high-resolution audio file and you're turning it into a 2 megabyte file. Conversely, if you turn this into, if you use the 320 setting for a 320 kilobit per second MP3 file, that I personally have a hard time hearing a difference between that and a WAV file. Even at 192, it sounds really good, but 320, just go with the highest setting, MP3, the sample rate here, just use whatever your session is, and use constant bit rate. 320 will sound great, and it'll still be a fairly small 10 megabyte or less file. You don't want to skimp here. You don't want to put all your work into this music and then drop it into a 128 or 64 MP3 to share with the world. You have literally, not literally shot yourself in the foot, but whatever the musical equivalent of that is. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching. If you have questions, let me know in the comments. If you want to see more mistakes or you've got issues you would like me to address in a future video, let me know. I'd love to hear it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. See you in the next one.